This is going to be a tutorial on a walk cycle. Right now I've got my character all nested into one symbol, and I'll just get that looping, and there you go. I've got that at 48 frames for one full cycle. So there it is in the Swift. It's just a walk cycle. So I got my character is one nested symbol, and I've got all these different parts of his body animating at the same time. Each part of his body is on a separate layer. There's his body, his helmet, waist, got his legs, or left arm, and then his left leg, foot, leg, toe, upper leg, his right arm, his right leg, with his right toe, and everything's completely separate, each symbol. And then I have it all right here in GR character for a graphic symbol. And I got the field, we'll add later. So, I've got, as you can see, I'll start showing you just his lower half of his legs walking. And you can see how that works. And now you can see all the different layers I have animating all at the same time to get this effect. So, as you can see, I've got all of his left legs animating. I've got this like every 6 frames on this, in this case. So I'm going to create a new layer, create a new symbol, and name it Walk Cycle Demo. I'll go ahead and I'll show you how I did this. So I've already got all my parts of his body drawn and created into symbols. I'll start with the right leg. So that is right upper leg. Go ahead and drag that onto the stage. Zoom in. I zoom in with Control Plus. I'll go ahead and grab his other leg. Grab his foot. Drag that on the stage. And his toe. And I'm going to select everything on the layer and just distribute 2 layers. So now I've got everything on a separate layer, and I'm just going to arrange it in the hierarchy so that what is visible, only you can see what I want to be visible. So, next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change the pivot point. You do that selecting the free transform tool. I'll set this one up by his ankle. Set this one up by his knee. And his upper leg I'll set up by the top of his leg, by his waist, I guess you could say, or his hips. and that's where it will be rotating at. So now I'm going to insert the waist, and I'll have that underneath that layer. Okay, so creating the right leg, and I'm creating the left leg folders. This is just to keep it more organized, because with the amount of layers on a animation like this, you want to make sure everything's really organized and easy to know what's on each layer. So I'm going to want to drag the left leg folder underneath the waist so that it appears as if it's behind it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop all these layers. His foot and his toe. Excuse me. So I'm going to select everything on the layer, right click, distribute to layers. It's just a lot easier. It names it for you, and yeah, and it puts every symbol on a separate layer. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a frame. And I'm just going to rearrange these layers. So now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a motion tween on every single one of these layers, because that's how it's going to be animated. I found this way would be probably the easiest way to demonstrate a walk cycle. You could do it with onion skinning. You could do it with onion skinning, or yeah, there's a lot of ways you can do it, but this seemed like the easiest way to demonstrate. So I'm just changing the pivot point, and each pivot point will be where it will be rotating from. And I'm doing this about every 3 frames. So the first frame, my next frame, key pose will be on frame 4. And I'm creating the contact pose. And I'm creating a ground for my character. This is to ensure that his feet are landing, or evenly placed on the ground, so it doesn't look like he's just walking in air. It looks like his feet are actually making contact with something. And now I am just going through and rotating and repositioning as needed. So I got his waist, and all I'm simply doing is just repositioning into every single position that I need for this to animate. Like I said, this is going to be the contact pose. All I'm doing is just making simple adjustments so the design doesn't look flawed in the animation. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually moving all these keyframes back to the first frame because I want to make sure that my contact pose is on the first frame. All I'm doing is I'm highlighting it, and then you'll see a little kind of like hashtagged rectangle, and all you do is just drag that out back to the frame you want it on, and it'll just move it there. So now I'm going to go out to frame 4 and start making adjustments. And I'm rotating and repositioning. Because I didn't know, I don't think that Flash has any parenting system on here. This was the easiest way to go about it. In After Effects, you have a parenting option that makes this a lot easier, but in this case you don't. So I'm just kind of using the pivot point as where the joint would normally rotate, but since I'm selecting multiple objects at once, it converts the pivot point when all of them are selected to the center of those selected objects. If you're moving these individually, they would rotate, but they wouldn't rotate with each other. So that's the purpose of repositioning. The next pose I'm doing is the down pose, so I'm making sure all of these, you got to make sure that the waist is down so it appears like the whole body's moving down, and then go through and adjust all of these. I did the art in Flash. You can do it in Photoshop if you want and import it in. I just did these in Flash. They're just real simple objects. And each one I'm just repositioning into the next position. I've got my down pose. Next one I'm working on, next position I'm working on is my passing position. And I'm just going ahead, I'm selecting all of the objects, I'm just raising it up. Because the whole body will be moving up. Next pose, passing position. It's always good to have the knee a little bent. When it's just straight forward like that, if you have it perfectly straight, it looks kind of funny. So it's always really good to just keep the knee with even the slightest little bend that's noticeable, to give it a more realistic feel. If it were perfectly straight, it would be kind of awkward. You can get away with things without bending it and keeping it perfectly straight, sometimes, depending on the design you have. So it can vary. Alright, so I got one step into passing position. And it's always good to scrub through. Now this should work. I've made them a frame too much, a frame ahead than I wanted, so now I'm gonna have to just go in and adjust it manually, select it, and then you'll see a little hashtagged rectangle, and you can just click and drag that to a frame over if you made the mistake I did. If you make any mistake making any key poses. So just scrubbing, make sure it's right, and gonna go ahead and start to reposition all of these even further higher, and I'm gonna make the up pose. And I'm just selecting all of the objects, all of the symbols, and rotating them accordingly. Make sure you're not grabbing the motion tween line, and undo that. And now I'm just repositioning the foot to make sure it doesn't look like it has any flaws in the design. And I'm just selecting all of these objects and creating the up pose. So you see it looks kind of funny going through it. You can make any fine adjustments frame by frame that you need to at any time, but I'm just doing the main poses right now. So I'm going to create the next pose, which is the contact pose. And this is the final pose for this one step. Make sure the knee's got some bend to it, otherwise it could kind of look funny. And creating the contact pose, rotating the feet. You got your 4 basic poses, and then you just cycle through and do it again, and you'll have your full cycle. All I'm doing is I'm selecting all the layers that I'm going to animate. I'm bringing it down so the feet are on the line. I'm going to rotate all these different parts. To make sure that it is all animating appropriately. As you can see, I got one step going through. So that's that walk cycle. And just scrub through to make sure everything looks right. In this case, I made this frame a little bit too far, so I'm going to go in just one frame ahead of where I wanted it to be, and I'm going to just scrub it back one frame. So I'm doing this for all the frames, just scrubbing it back to make sure it all looks right. And I've got the contact pose. So, go a couple frames ahead and start putting in my next pose. Next pose will be the down pose, just with the opposite leg leading forward. So I'm going to grab everything on that I'm animating, waist, legs, feet, everything, and just bring it all down. If you don't do that and you don't bring the whole character down, it will start to look like there is absolutely no weight on this guy, and that would look strange. So I am just repositioning everything. And placing it where I need it, repositioning as needed. Got my down pose. And scrub through your animation to make sure everything's looking right. It's easier to fix something earlier on than later on, usually. If there were any mistakes, I'm going to go ahead and create my next frame, passing position. Just drag it up, or you could use the arrow keys. And I'm doing all of these transformations with the free transform tool. And just rotating accordingly and moving accordingly, repositioning. So now I need to rotate the leg into the passing position. Reposition. And move the foot. And now I've got the passing position. So next position is the up position. So I'm going to reposition this. And create the up pose. These are all key poses in a walk cycle. It would look really funny if you didn't have these same poses. So now we've got our character's foot in place. And I'm rotating here, repositioning. Rotating, repositioning. Got my up pose. And I need one more frame to make this look right, so I'm going to go insert frame. And what you can do is, for the last frame, you just copy the first frame. So go to the first frame, click and drag, and bring it all the way to the front for each one of these. And this will make your animation loop. I skipped a frame, so I'm just going to reposition it more up on my waist. And I'm just copying the first frame and bringing it over. And to do this, I'm just clicking on it, and then I'm clicking on it again with that little rectangle and dragging it all the way to the end of my animation to create the loop. So I've got that there. And there we go. So now it should loop. Demo, I'm going to rename it. Delete the ground because I no longer need it there. Go into scene 1. You can always make adjustments and tweaks as needed. And there you go. Now I've got my walk cycle. The one is walking away faster than the other one. That's where weight and timing comes into play, but I hope this was helpful. And yeah, that's about it. Walk cycle in Adobe Flash CS6. Thanks.